Why do the worst people end up in power? Why does truth sound like madness in a broken world? What would it take to build a city that never falls? You're haunted by the same questions across generations, across civilizations. Why do our leaders so often fail us? Why does justice bend in the wind of wealth, fame, or fear? And why do the wisest, gentlest, truest among us seem to retreat from power while the loudest charge forward? This isn't new. Plato asked the same questions. In the wreckage of Athens' glory, he saw not just a political crisis, but a moral and spiritual collapse. A society obsessed with appearance over substance, noise over truth, ambition over virtue. And in the center of that storm stood the man who refused to play the game, Socrates. Socrates didn't hold office. He didn't lead an army. He simply stood in the agora, the public square, and asked questions, dangerous ones. He called himself a gadfly, irritating the city into wakefulness. He asked what justice was, what virtue meant, whether we knew what we pretended to know. And Athens, embattled, proud, humiliated by war, answered by giving him poison. To Plato, this wasn't just the death of a friend. It was the symptom of a disease. Athenian democracy, in his eyes, had become infected by demagoguery, by mob rule, by the tyranny of opinion. So Plato turned inward, away from the noise of the city, away from the passions of the crowd, and he began to dream. A new kind of city, one that wouldn't rise and fall with the winds of rhetoric. A city not ruled by merchants or warriors or actors, but by philosophers. He called it Kallipolis, the beautiful city. A society governed not by desire, but by truth. Not by impulse, but by order. Not by power, but by the soul's harmony. To Plato, the state was not just a mechanism, it was a mirror. What the soul is, the state becomes. Plato divides the soul into three parts. The first is the reason, the part that seeks truth, clarity, understanding. The second is the spirit, the part that defends, strives, protects. The third is the appetite, the part that hungers for pleasure, comfort, consumption. A just soul is one where reason rules, spirit obeys, and appetite follows. And so, a just city must reflect that order. Philosophers, the wise, should rule. Warriors, the brave, should defend. Producers, the artisans, the laborers, should provide. Each class has a role, a virtue, and a place. Like organs in a body, all are needed, but not all should lead. This vision to Plato wasn't abstract. It was a remedy, a way to prevent the chaos of democracy from collapsing into tyranny. But who could lead such a city? Not the rich, not the popular, not the loud. Plato believed that only those who love wisdom above all else, who have no hunger for fame or wealth, can be trusted with power. These philosopher-kings would undergo decades of training, mathematics to sharpen reason, music to harmonize the soul, dialectic to seek truth without bias. And finally, they would turn their eyes toward the form of the good, Plato's ultimate ideal. He describes it like the sun, the source of all understanding, all moral clarity. Only those who have seen this sun, who have emerged from the cave of illusion, can rule justly. But Plato's city came with a cost. Elitism, censorship, strict hierarchy. The poets would be expelled, too emotionally dangerous. Children would be raised communally, free from parental bias. Personal freedom would yield to the collective harmony of the soul state. Was this a utopia or a beautifully ordered prison? Even Aristotle, Plato's brightest student, warned, "You can't reshape human beings to fit a city. You must build a city to fit human nature." So, who was right? Plato, with his radical blueprint for justice, or his critics, who feared control dressed up as reason? Maybe the more important question isn't who should rule, but what kind of souls we are shaping, in ourselves, in our leaders, in our cities. Because Plato wasn't just offering a political system. He was offering a mirror to our desires, our fears, and the invisible structures within us that often rule more powerfully than any king. We want freedom, but do we know what we mean by it? We want justice, but do we recognize it when we see it? We crave leadership, but are we worthy of the leaders we imagine? So let's return. Why do the worst people end up in power? Because we often reward charisma over character. We chase desire instead of discipline. We mistake shouting for strength. Why does truth sound like madness in a broken world? Because in a society addicted to illusion, the one who sees clearly sounds insane. Just like Socrates, but just like the prisoner who escapes Plato's cave and tries to free the others, only to be attacked for his clarity. And what would it take to build a city that never falls? A city governed by souls that have wrestled with truth, that have questioned themselves before questioning others, that have learned, as Plato says, to be ruled by inner harmony before they try to rule anyone else. Plato believed, until philosophers rule as kings or kings truly become philosophers, we will live in cities ruled by shadows. And perhaps the greatest revolution begins not in the streets, but in the soul.